Welcome to Hardcover. I'm Peter Bryn. She's Brittany Bryn, and this is Twig.
And you'll see why we called this episode that later.
Yeah.
Yeah. Something to do with growth or, I don't know.
Trees.
Trees. We're not talking about trees today. We're actually interviewing Christopher Caniff.
Christopher is the current president of the Canadian Authors Association, Toronto branch.
He's also an author, and Christopher is also from Windsor, so that's a cool connection, and we're really excited to have him in the studio today. Why don't you tell us a bit about your journey as a writer and how you've gotten to where you are today?
Oh, okay. Well, I started with short stories. So I began with an anthology with tightrope books. So it was it largely came out of my experiences in Ecuador. I lived in Ecuador for a year, just moved away from Windsor down there to start writing. And usually I intended to start reading. So then out of that came the writing. So, I started reading books and writing my thoughts down as I went along, and that's how the short stories came about. So I was interested in short stories, but more interested in the long novel form. Mm-hmm. So I started taking those short stories and compiling a number of short stories into a longer form novel. And I found that didn't work very well. Mm-hmm. So I was going back and because I was trying to find a common theme, and just it was like more of a short story, linked short stories, like a short story collection more than a novel. So then I went back and went to the drawing board and started with the novel as well. So and I just started with that Tightrope Books anthology, and as well I was published in Descant. And that was where I rewrote a short story that I had for that publication based on a call for submissions. As well, I started with Quattro, a novella that was with Quattro Books. So I submitted for the Ken Klonsky Novella Contest, and they picked it up. Even though it wasn't the winning entry, they picked it up based on the fact that it shortlisted for that. So that was promising, and they made me read quite a few books in the preparation, in the rewrites for those, some psychology books and some, it's largely a psychological type novel. So I was reading these books and like Jung, and rereading some like Hermann Hesse and like the Steppenwolf, and what else? Yeah. So some other work. Heart of Darkness, yes. Conrad. Yeah, that was another one. Yeah. So those were things that kind of influenced the way it was being rewritten as well. So, and then my latest, Poor Man's Galapagos, came from an earlier draft that was started when I was in Ecuador, and it came out of my experiences there. All of it is based on my experiences there, but it's, told from the first person, being someone that's lived there for their whole lives and never known anything but that island. So, but being from another land, like his father was from Britain. So he, so he's struggling to find his identity, as well as his father leaves the island suddenly. So he's trying to find out about the accusations against him. And I've always found that interesting when someone disappears out of nowhere. And, so then trying to find like those type of novels like Orhan Pamuk or something like The Black Book. I always found that interesting, where his wife kind of vanishes and then he's got to try and find out where she went. So that kind of summarizes it.
Cool. What was it like moving from, you went from Windsor to straight to Ecuador?
Right.
Like,
right.
What's that like? Go through that process.
Well, actually, Puerto Viejo is where I lived, and I lived for 1 month in Quito, where we had language lessons and health classes. I went with 11 other people. Most of them, there was one from Japan, one from Australia, the rest were from the U.S., and myself from Canada. After that 1 month in Quito, then we moved to Puerto Viejo, and it's actually the same size as Windsor, but in Ecuador. So I wanted to see some of the differences and similarities. And, you can buy a house there for $1,000, a nice house. And, they're happy with what they have, you know, so they're really contented and really amazing people. They really opened up and very friendly. And, I think I wrote a lot about that because it was so important to me to try and convey that to people as well. So, because I found that so interesting. And even going to Mexico before going to Ecuador, I found the people very friendly as well.
So there's this idea of having to go away to be able to write. Did that influence why you moved to Ecuador for that time, or?
Well, I was thinking about Gauguin, if that's it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because Somerset Maugham wrote that one novel that was Moon and Sixpence, I think. So, yeah, but he had a family. I think he had 5 children and a wife at the time. So, Somerset Maugham depicted him as kind of like a monster for leaving his family like that. And so I didn't have that issue. I was a single man at the time, so I didn't have a family that I left behind or something. Right. But I did go with the intention of just reading, so I didn't intend to write. I had done some writing in the past, but that wasn't my intention. So it just kind of came out. Like, I guess if you read a lot, then you tend to think you can write. So that's what happened to me. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
And you were a mechanical engineer before that?
Yes, I still am.
Still
yeah.
am.
Yeah.
Yes,
so that's
still
right.
are.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So, I'm a practicing professional engineer as well. And so that's how I make a living.
Right.
And yes, so this is a sideline for me as well. So
It was a very successful sideline, though.
yeah. Well, thank you. Yes.
Yeah. Does your background in engineering ever factor into what you write about, or?
Yep, like the main character of Poor Man's Galapagos is an irrigation engineer. So I never took irrigation engineering in school, but I could appreciate just doing some research for the novel about some of the ancient civilizations and what they had to go through in order to irrigate, right? So that's something that the main character is fascinated with as well, and he wants to help the people. And in order to do that, he's going through agronomy, and he's studying to become an irrigation engineer. So he says that, I can just sit here and do my regular duties and, kind of fill the fields with water, or I can try and make a real difference for the people that would involve these alboradas, which they're something that it was an ancient irrigation technique that was used by the ancient Incans. And what they did was they just dug a pool of water to keep out the seawater that would fill with rainwater and not get contaminated with seawater, right? And it would fill up with all these wide variety of crops. At the surface, it seems simple and easy to do, but the placement of these alboradas is very precise in order to keep the salination levels low. So what his plan is to become involved in why did the ancient ones survive the rains of El Nino and the new ones cannot? So these ones that they're building now are not surviving, whereas these ancient ones are. So then, he's trying to solve that mystery.
Right.
Yeah.
So having those mysteries kind of interwoven in the story, like not that the books are mystery novels, but there's a sense of like something to be solved or something to be discovered.
Right. But I did have a literary agent say that, is this a mystery?
Oh.
And I said, no, it's not a real mystery, and that's what she was looking for. So.
Oh, that's too bad.
Yeah. So that's
like
what,
a leading question.
Yeah, right. Yeah, because I consider them literary fiction. So then, but sometimes like an agent will try and categorize it into a specific genre if that's what they're interested in, so.
Okay, so you're the president of the Canadian Authors Association, like the Toronto branch of it, or the whole like encompassing?
No, the Toronto branch.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, I've been the president for about 2 years.
Okay.
And so that organization is about 75 members now. It's a little bit down, but it's one of many in the country. There's like the Vancouver branch. There's Alberta. There's one, Waterloo Wellington is a big one. There's Niagara that runs an annual contest for short fiction, and they produce an anthology every year, which we did 1 year as well. So yeah, there's a number of different branches around the country, and there's not currently one in Windsor, but I'm looking to start one up as soon as the opportunity, as soon as I'm complete in my period with the Toronto branch. So that's something that I've expressed to the national branch, as well as asking other area writers here, because you need the 7 authors in order to start up a branch. So
what does membership in that entail?
Yeah. It entails just like an annual fee, filling out the form online and deciding, okay, what do I want out of this organization? Do I want manuscript review and comment, like a critique on manuscripts? Do I want to attend monthly meetings? Do I want to interface with other writers, become part of a writing community? Because I've always maintained that being part of a writing community is very important. That's what's led to my publications, is interfacing with other publishers and other writers and finding out about what the publishers and editors and things are looking for. So because I attended one Canadian Authors Association event where it was the publisher of Quattro Books, and so he was talking about the novella contest. So I went there and took copious notes, and I said, okay, what do they want out of a novella, right? So he was saying things like, okay, we want something that has a setting that's small, right? Because you got a shorter novel, so you have something that's set in a house, for example, or you have something that's set over a summer, or you have something that's set over just something smaller in scope. You can't choose something epic in scope and then have it condensed into a novella, which he said quite a few people do that. They try and tone down a longer work and make it shorter and get that published as a novella. So, but to answer your question, I'm kind of going off topic now, but it's just to decide what you want out of it. And I think that interfacing with other writers, editors, publishers, agents is very important. And there's other events in Toronto as well. And, you know, being part of this, the Canadian Authors Association gives you access to those other branches that, you know, so you can find out what other things are happening, say in Waterloo and Niagara region, and find out what do I want out of those. You know, there's also Humber School for Writers, which I've taken a couple of times, and they have writing circles there. And so that's how I'm participating in this International Festival of Authors. Was I met Antena Salika, who's the director for the Artistic School for Writers at Humber. And so he invited me to this, but I've met him on a number of occasions. And so he was involved with Descan in the earlier days as well. So they had the 40th anniversary for Descan. So I saw him there. And I also saw him at the International Festival of Authors, and kind of introduced myself. And I've been in communication with him. He's very good about, if you're an alumni of the Humber School for Writers, he's very good about, okay, tell me about your successes if you have, and that's actually the title of the event on the 24th is, you know, past, like, successful success stories, I think it's called. So then he's very good about promotion. Like if you give him something, you know, say I've just got a novel published, he'll put it up on the alumni page, and so things like that. He's very supportive and encouraging, as well as like I was writing one that was based on an artist. So the main character is an artist, and he sent me his book, Martin Sloan. No, well, that was one of the books he recommended I read, but he sent me his book to read that one as well. So, you know, just that was very encouraging to me. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Definitely good to have a community of people you can depend on, and you know, with your writing. And
right, for sure. Exactly. Yeah.
If people want to look up information about the Toronto branch or the possibility of there being a Windsor branch, where can they go, or how can they contact you?
Oh, okay. On the website, it's canauthorstoronto.org, and that has my contact information. So I'm just you just click on the president or treasurer, then it'll send an email directly to myself. So I
noticed in your bio that you've written 2 radio dramas or scripts.
Right. Yes, that was for the Twilight Zone radio dramas.
Oh, that's so fun.
Yeah. So I don't know if you've heard of those, but it's Falcon Picture Group in Chicago is doing those. So they took all the old Twilight Zone series and made them into radio scripts. But there were certain ones that, like when I got involved with it, he said, okay, there's one where there's only one character in the story, right? So how do you convey that over radio? Like you have their thoughts, or how do you do that? So the idea was just to have another person involved, so they're talking, you know. So that was one of the scripts I wrote, and another one was just based on a 1940s radio drama that he liked. So he gave that to me, and he liked it, but I was commissioned to write those 2. So, yeah.
So how is writing like an adaptation different than writing something from your own imagination or experience?
Yeah, that one was more because it was 50 pages exactly. It was set to be, a minute per page. And yeah, there was some certain rules that had to be followed. And he gave me the sample scripts and said, okay, you have to follow these strict guidelines in order to, because you can't go over the length. You can't go, so you have to be very, you just do stage direction as far as, what's happening around them and things. So, yeah, but it was a very interesting writing process. And, just going through it over the phone with him, he was very, he would read through the parts and you could tell that he had a lot of passion behind it. So, yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, so why don't you tell us a bit about Poor Man's Galapagos?
So the novel Poor Man's Galapagos, it's told from two different perspectives. So Thomas is the irrigation engineering student, and then there's Montgomery, his father, who's a travel writer. And he's traveled all over the world, and his Thomas has never gone anywhere except for around the island. So, and he's been largely absent from Thomas's life. So that's one of the things that you can tell right at the beginning of the novel. So at the beginning, you've got the father that's accused of embezzling government funds. And so it's not clear whether the accusations are true, and that's something that is one of the inciting events in the novel. So that's where Thomas has to find out, okay, are these true, or through inquiring from other people that are on the island, because his father disappears after these accusations. And at the same time of these accusations, Thomas is conscripted into the border war between Ecuador and Peru. So it's over oil and uranium resources. At the same time, so he's trying to fight the government, just fighting his conscription, and he's trying to figure out, how do I do this? Because he doesn't agree with that border war, and he thinks he's going to die a senseless death. So that's what's happening at the beginning of the novel. And at the beginning, he's shown to be very peaceful, and he's told to participate in a government protest, but he doesn't end up doing it. So if that's okay, I'll just start reading.
Yeah,
for sure.
Okay, so Thomas headed home. Everyone in the family would be there. He walked by Isla de la Plata's only cliff overlooking the Pacific's Great Plain. His shirt stuck with sweat to his lean frame, the business end of a carbon-filtered cigarette crunched between his fingers in one hand, and the bottle of sugarcane alcohol with its rag fuse coddled in the other. 20 meters below, the sea splashed against convoluted rocks alive with cangrejos, crabs that climbed and receded with the waves of the outgoing tide. His mother Violet had come to the spot often before she left the island, and she must have contemplated her departure while sitting on these same rocks, thinking of leaving her newborn son behind with the gift only of a name. It was easier for her to leave, Montgomery told Thomas, as Violet never once allowed herself to gaze into her baby's eyes. There was no chance for feelings of protection or maternal love to emerge. She could learn to forget his tiny hands, his facial contortions, and his minute arms stretching toward hers. But his eyes, Montgomery had always said, his eyes she could never forget. Nothing would burn itself into her memory like that. Now he could see fishing boats returning to their ports, followed closely by an array of seabirds. The nets glimmered with picudo fish, the fishermen wearing the same hats that protected them from both sun and rain. The setting sun cast stretched shadows beneath a long line of clouds where northern and southern air currents collided to flow inland and create the island's only seasons, wet and dry. Thomas tossed his cigarette into the surf and pulled out his lighter. With a quick flick of finger on flint, he ignited the white rag in the bottle's mouth, dropped it, and watched the sea of flame splash onto the rocks below. A strange sense of relief overcame him at the sight of fire, which extinguished properly under the modulations of the sea. Soon darkness would descend, and the moon goddess Mamakia would appear, volleying herself among 1,000 stars as she pondered why the Inca who once worshipped her had disappeared. As he continued home, he wondered whether he would be left alone, without his only known blood relative once again, and whether he would spend his nights considering why, if the accusations against his father were not true, Montgomery would have run away so quickly. So I'll just skip ahead a little bit here.
Sure.
Isla de la Plata, or the Isle of Silver, more aptly designated La Isla de Mil Sombras de los Azules, or the island of 1,000 shades of blue, was instead named for the precious metal found by Spanish soldiers shining from native necks and buried beneath inherited earth. The Spanish conquistadors battled the islanders, their firearms pitted against spears. Conquistadores, conquerors. They brought no women with them. In North America, those from the European continent who had brought their women were known as settlers. The Isle of Silver and the poor man's Galapagos. Notions embedded in history and geography, the former from its prior abundance of a precious metal, the latter from its close proximity to the mainland in comparison with the Galapagos Islands. Isla de la Plata is 30 miles from the coast, the Galapagos Islands 600. Charles Darwin's flawed theory evolved from the more isolated environment of the Galapagos, with its blue-footed boobies perched against sun-heated rocks, sea lions barking their husky songs on huge expanses of beach beside giant tortoises dragging their weight through the sand, marine iguanas diving to clear blue depths in search of aquatic plant life, and 100 different species of finches. Only some of this splendor, a few varieties of finches, blue-footed boobies, some sea lions, and none of the famed giant tortoises, has been bestowed upon the few visitors to Isla de la Plata, mostly Ecuadorians who lack the money to travel more than 30 miles from the coast.
Awesome.
Yeah.
A lot of themes initially of like leaving and returning and like coming back, but things not being the same, or like I'm still thinking about it in my head. What themes are going on?
Yeah,
Okay.
lots of references to family too.
Yeah.
That's
So
a
then-
huge point.
theme. Yeah, it's kind of a driving theme in the novel as well, because he's never known his mother, and his father he barely knows because he was never there. And so he lives with his stepmother, and that's the only family he's ever known. So
Right.
yeah.
And
so
is Eduardo like a half brother or a friend?
yeah,
or-
Eduardo is a friend of Montgomery, so that's a friend of Thomas's father.
Oh, okay.
So then he's trying to build a hotel on the island, and he sees that as the island's future, and that's what his father sees as well. So he wants Thomas to be involved in that as an irrigation engineer, so helping with that project. So.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, lots of dynamics there.
Wow.
So this novel was part of Crazy for Canlit. this
That's right.
year.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's right.
What
yeah.
is that?
So that's one of two books that was from Blue Denim Press that was on Crazy for Canlit. So there's about 200 books that were on there. And so that was just to get discussion for the Giller Prize to, start people reading these books and to get discussions going. So that forum was started for that as well. So I was very grateful to be a part of that and to have two books. The other one is Shane Joseph's book as well. So that was very good to have his on there as well. So,
And Blue.
so that was In the Shadow of the Conquistador. So
Okay.
yeah.
And Blue Denim is in Toronto?
They're in Cobourg, which is east of Toronto.
So were they the first people that you sent the book to, or is it-
No, I did send it to multiple people, but I met him at one of the Canadian Authors Association events as well, and he said that he was publishing this In the Shadow of the Conquistador for the upcoming season, and I mentioned that I had written a book set in South America as well, so we launched those two at the same time. So, which
cool.
was worked out
Yeah.
very well. Yeah, so his was set in Machu Picchu,
Yeah.
and mine is partially set in Machu Picchu as well. So.
Interesting crossover.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Making connections and
Yeah,
I like
so
it.
It's, yeah,
Very cool.
Yeah, so it's worked out well. Yeah, because if I can promote, like, just to say where they can find the book on, like, it's at any of the bookstores. Like Biblioasis has some copies as well. I dropped them off, but you can get it through the distributor, which is like at all the big bookstores as well. It's in the U.S. also. It's worldwide that you can get it, and it's on. My website has a link to it. The Blue Denim Press website has a link to it, and they can just do a search and find it as
Great.
well. So,
Awesome. And you have two events coming up, one on the 24th and
Yep,
one
that's
on
right.
the November 1st.
yep. So the two events are on the 24th, the International Festival of Authors. I'm going to be on a panel for that, which is a panel of Humber School for Writers alumni. So that was organized by Antanas Salika, who's the director for the School for Writers. And So this is called Success Stories. So there's going to be discussion about, it's a 45-minute presentation discussion about our stories and how we were published. So then, it's very exciting to be a part of International Festival of Authors, and for a long time I've wanted to do that. So I was grateful that Antennas reached out to me and was able to do this. So it's also open to the public. Yeah.
And what's the one on the first?
Yeah.
There's going to be the Rowers Pub Reading Series, which is a long time reading series, and that one is it highlights a number of prominent authors. So in this case, it's going to be myself and Shane Joseph from Blue Denim Press, and there might be some other people. I haven't seen the full itinerary, but there's going to be myself and Shane. Usually there's 4 or 5 writers, and then they and there's a lot of poetry as well, but it's largely fiction. So, and it's been ongoing for years and years, and I'm friends with the director for that as well, so that she reached out to me and asked if, we would be able to read for that as well. So,
so exciting.
Great.
yeah, so it's... and then, some more details, like my events page on my website. It's ChristopherCaniff.com. So it's got all the details of the events coming up as well. So,
yeah, well, thanks for reading.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it.
Today's Harmonica segment, we're going to give you a creative writing challenge because we haven't done one of those in a while, and I always enjoy seeing what comes out of them. So write us a bit about somewhere that you've been and maybe something that you saw or experienced there. You can tweet those to us at hardcoverradio.com. That's the website.
Hardcover is a thing because of you, the listener, as well as our supporters at CJAM, a nonprofit radio station that provides stuff that's not offered by the mainstream media in the Windsor and Detroit area. We're here because of your generous support and donations, so thanks for listening. Feel free to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, iTunes, YouTube, Patreon, wherever you can find us. Check out hardcoverradio.com for more.